All I remember is really just making $800 every 2 weeks. Right now, my pay range for a principal engineer is about 96,000 to 196, and I'm somewhere in the middle of that. My name is Megan Lewis Taylor, and I'm a principal project engineer at Collins Aerospace. When I was younger, I always used to think that I would be some kind of pilot or something in that field. I actually ended up going to college right out of high school. I went there for a year on an Army ROTC scholarship, but as I got involved in the Army ROTC stuff, it wasn't for me. The Coast Guard just seemed like the place for me, and so I actually left college and I was able to enlist in the Coast Guard. I knew I'd always do something related with aerospace, but just not when. So I was stationed in Marquette, Michigan at a search and rescue unit. So we would go out like a fire station, you get an alert, and then you go out in these high speed, saving people. We would do ice rescue there. And then I was at a maritime safety and security team. And so that's like an anti-terrorism unit. Anytime the president would go somewhere, we would go with him. I was a first responder for Boston bombings, and then also first responder for Hurricane Sandy. We were deployable, so we would just go and be there for first responding. Something that happened for me when I wanted to get out of the Coast Guard was I was just tired. And so when you're search and rescue and then you're responding to these national events, it's great, but you're always gone, you're on the move, and I was just ready to settle down, have a normal life. I got out of the Coast Guard and I applied to go to school, but at the time I don't think I was really ready to be in that realm in my life. And so I ended up getting a police officer job in New Hampshire. I did the police job for about 2 years, and since I already knew that I wanted to go to school for engineering and I'd been accepted, I just called the school and I said, hey, I was already accepted 2 years ago, and then they just moved my acceptance to that, and then 2 weeks later I was back to school on my GI Bill. I was definitely scared to make the change because it's you're going from this foundation of you're getting your paycheck every week, and then now it's not. Learning how to learn again, it's a whole new environment. I wanted to become an engineer because I knew that I could do more. I'd done all this stuff with my hands of the Coast Guard and the police officer, and now I was ready to use my brain, being able to do more with less. The way I ended up as an engineer at Collins Aerospace was I was giving a presentation at school, and one of the board members was a director of engineering there, and he had saw me give a presentation, and right then and there he was like, I want to bring you in for an interview. And so I ended up going to that job, enjoying it, loving it, learning my foundation and roots of engineering, and then I did that for 2 years, and I was able to go on to full-time at that same job. When I was hired full-time at Collins, I was a mechanical engineer, so it's working on large-scale camera systems, so reconnaissance, cameras that go onto fighter jets and things like that, multispectral dual-band cameras, flip mechanisms, and things that go down and you can read the signs on buildings. I've also worked some space programs doing design of pumping systems and cabling. Now I work in the interiors division, and so I work a lot with the things inside of an airplane. So, closets and galleys, business class seating, how we design that, what goes in, is a lot of thought that goes into that. One of the great things about being at a large company is they have the ability to partner with other companies. And so one of the partnerships is with Engineers Without Borders. And so as an intern, I found out that they were working on a Guatemala project, and I immediately wanted to get involved to help, because it brought that aspect of not only am I helping an individual, but now I get to help hundreds of people with my engineering skills. Part of Engineers Without Borders is helping people meet their basic human needs and then sustainably, being able to keep those. My company allows us, to go and do these projects all over the US and internationally. When I first got in the Coast Guard, I was just bottom of the barrel. All I remember is really just making $800 every 2 weeks, and my rent was like $800, so it was a struggle. And then so when I was a police officer, I made about $50,000 to $60,000, and then right now, my pay range for a principal engineer is about 96,000 to 196, and I'm somewhere in the middle of that. I would say that it feels weird sometimes to call myself an engineer because, I would say I've had different lives. So past lives, when I was in the Coast Guard and cop and now, an engineer, it's like every life has its own chapter and book. And then this is just, the best book that I just started, and I can't wait to get to the next page. What I do when I'm not at work is just be outside, outdoors, paddleboarding, hiking, biking. Anything in the water is always a go-to. My advice to someone trying to make a career change is when you're in it, it's grinding, but when you're out of it, I can't even remember how hard that was or how much I had to sacrifice. Not relying on that instant gratification is so valuable because now I'm sitting here as a principal engineer, and 4 years ago I was a police officer. I can't even remember how hard it was because now my life is so good.